every time it comes to that time of the month, it's just a really hard week for me. It is incredibly hard for me because it kind of brings me back to like, if it wasn't for this doggone period, I might not deal with what I deal with every day now. I might not have to have a completely different outlook on what I thought my life would look like now.
Have you tried yoga? Maybe you should see a psychologist. Are you stressed? Change your diet. Acupuncture. Try stretching. Sleep? You've been doing so well. Stop stressing. Anxiety. Functional?
Functionality.
Welcome back to the Functionality Podcast. I'm your host, Tausha. The tea of the day is a rooibos red tea and a peppermint tea. I had to do 2 bags there because that rooibos red tea gets a little bit plain. So if I spice it up with some peppermint, it's perfect. And I think that rooibos red tea goes great with the question of the day, which is, what's the tea on FND and that time of the month? See what I mean they have in common? So FND and that time of the month is really going to kind of bleed into and overlap with FND and endometriosis, which I also suffer from. So what's the tea on FND and that time of the month / endometriosis? And it really began with the endometriosis. So endometriosis really ties into my FND. I think it's really the reason why the symptoms started to actually appear. So really, I just think that the endometriosis is the precursor to my symptoms because that is what was happening in my life. Even if there were some kind of symptoms back before the endometriosis began, that is what was happening in my life directly prior to me beginning to develop symptoms of functional neurological disorder. So the endometriosis is very, very directly connected with it. So the endo pain started, and I knew based on test results that kept coming back negative, that's the theme in my life, and other sorts of imaging that ruled out other things, I knew that that's what I had was endometriosis. So since I'm going to be talking about that time of the month and endometriosis, this subject might not be the subject or the episode for the males unless you care for someone or you just simply want to know more information about what it feels like, what I go through, what other people potentially might go through as well, dealing with these sorts of things. So the endometriosis, it began in, so what happened was I was on birth control. I had been on birth control for a while, over a year, and my cycle had actually stopped. So I wasn't having anything every month, nothing for a whole year. I had nothing, which my mom kept saying, like, that's not normal. That's not how life is supposed to go. That is not how your body is supposed to go. You're interrupting the biology. And I was like, I didn't ask for it. I simply just take a pill every day for birth control. And this is how my body is responding. And my doctors never said that it was an issue. They never were concerned about it. So I just kind of lucked out and didn't have a cycle for an entire year. But when I decided to get off of birth control because I no longer needed it, then I had my first cycle resume after that, and I just knew something felt different. I knew that something was different. I have always had cramps. I've had cramps since my very, very first cycle. And but this time it was different. It was super intensified, and it was just kind of like dragging me down and causing me to really like feel it and complain about it in a sense more than I ever had. Like, I'm usually able to push through, which was my episode last week, FND and pushing through, FND and tenacity. I'm always able to push through. I've been able to push through that time of the month since it really began, because I seen my mom do it. And, you know, sometimes you have to take a little bit of Tylenol, maybe some ibuprofen. I can't take NSAIDs anymore, which is ibuprofen and Aleve and stuff like that, because of my ulcerative colitis. So Tylenol was my go-to generally, or would be my go-to when the cramps were bad. But during that first cycle that resumed after I got off the birth control, even the Tylenol wasn't kicking it. And so I was like, this is different. this is heavy. I was like, okay, I'm going to give my body the benefit of the doubt because of the fact that it has been without it for an entire year. So maybe this is what I get. This is how my body is like, I don't even know what to do. I don't even know how to go through this time of the month anymore. And then what happened was, after that cycle was over, the pain was still there. So then that is how I was in pain every single day for like 6 or 7 months. From the time that I had that first resumed cycle until I had my laparoscopic surgery for endometriosis, I was in pain every single day. All day, pretty much. I would wake up in pain, go to sleep in pain, work in pain, parent in pain, cook in pain, do all the things in pain. And it really was affecting my life. But luckily, I became my own advocate when it came to endo because I was doing research like, what is this pelvic pain? Why am I feeling this pain? You know, what is it leading to? And I kept getting to, it could be endometriosis, possible endometriosis. So then I was like, okay, I've heard of endo, but let me look further into it. So looking further into it, I was just like, yeah, this is it. I absolutely knew that that's what it was. And I was going to fight for the doctors that I was seeing to believe me and to find out as well that this was what I was experiencing. Because what they want to do is they quickly just want to medicate you and or they put you in boxes based off of assumptions. So when I went in and I'm complaining about chronic pelvic pain that won't go away, and then kind of explaining to them that I am sexually active and that I just got off birth control, and they're looking for pregnancies and they're looking for sexually transmitted infections, and I'm just like twiddling my fingers like, let me know when you don't find anything so that you can go ahead and look for what I'm actually trying to get you to, because I don't live like a reckless life. And I just knew there was no pregnancy. I knew there was no infection. They really tried to put like infections and everything on me, even tried to start me on a antibiotic. They were like, well, let's just start you on this antibiotic just in case. And so then if that helps your pain, then we know it was some type of infection that we couldn't find. And I was like, not doing it. I'm not just going to be your guinea pig. I'm not just going to take the medicine just in case, even though you haven't found something. And so then that led into, I realized that the real way to kind of diagnose endometriosis is by doing the laparoscopic surgery. So I asked for it. I simply was like, can I have this surgery? I am trying to have elective surgery so that you can find what I'm trying to tell you that I have. And so they tried to go the cheaper route and or the worst route for my body by saying, well, maybe we can just put you on this medicine, which will put you into a faux menopause. And then if that helps, then we're probably pretty sure it's endo. And I was like, again, not doing it, not just going to take medicine because you want me to. Not just going to take medicine just so we'll see, especially if it's going to put me into faux menopause. Like, think about what you're asking me to allow my body to succumb to. Like, I don't understand why that is the routes that the medical professionals take. They're like, here, let's just try this. And I'm like, hey, this is my body, though. This is my body. This is not some sort of a science experiment. I don't want to be an experiment. I want your expertise that you have gone to school for, that you get paid for, supposedly. I want your experience to speak for you instead of just me as an experiment to speak for you. So anywho, so a lot of that, admittedly, that whole experience, those 6-7 months were extremely stressful. So not only was I in chronic pain every day, not only was it the very beginning of COVID, so like the first 6 months of COVID, in pain every day, first 6 months of COVID, and also just being stressed out with what I was feeling with COVID and with not being heard. With not feeling like, I actually read a book, an audiobook during this time. It was called The Doctor Will See You Now. And it is a whole book about endometriosis and the stuff that women suffer through when they deal with this disease. So I was like, I probably am getting to know more about this than the providers that I'm even seeing, because I'm hearing and I'm reading and I'm researching from women who deal with it, which that is a part of the reason why I decided to create this podcast, is because it was so helpful for me, for endo and for FND, to hear from people who deal with it. The medical providers can talk about what they read in the chapter or the paragraph or 3 on the different things that we suffer from, but for the people who deal with it every day, we have so much more of an experience. We have so much more insight, I think. and I want to share it. And so then I did get them to allow me to have the surgery. I did get the surgery done. And guess what they found? They found out it was endo. And I was like, yeah, I know, thanks. And so then I was like very excited about moving forward with my life. I was very excited about not having horrible cycles anymore. I was excited about getting my life back because I was like, okay, I fought for myself for these 7 months. I dealt with the pain. I pushed through and I got to a solution. And so now all I need to do is heal up and I will be great. And then what happened?
No, God, please, no!
I had the surgery in July of 2020. And then September of 2020, my FND symptoms started. So that is why FND and endo, they are like, they overlap in a sense. I almost can't see the lines between the two because I was having a little bit of tremors before the surgery, but I thought that was just because I was on some pain medications. And so I saw that could be a side effect. So I chalked it up to that. But now I'm thinking like, was that the FND starting then? So it's a little blurry as far as the lines between the two. That's why every time it comes to that time of the month, it's just a really hard week for me. It is incredibly hard for me because it kind of brings me back to like, if it wasn't for this doggone period, I might not deal with what I deal with every day now. I might not have to have a completely different outlook on what I thought my life would look like now. And so one thing about FND is that it can come with a symptom of chronic pain, but it does not like it when you're in pain for reasons other than FND. I mean, a little bit narcissistic there, FND. But it doesn't. So anytime you're in pain for anything other than FND, i.e. cramps, i.e. that time of the month, i.e. any sort of a headache due to not eating, or i.e. you worked out and you're sore, i.e. pain from ulcerative colitis. So anytime I have any other pain outside of just the chronic pain that comes with FND, my body doesn't like it. The FND gets a little bit jealous and is like, hey, I didn't cause that, but I want to join in on the party. And so then they just get to partying together. And again, they just blurred lines. It's like, is this endo? Is this FND? Is this UC? Who knows? Let's roll the dice and pick who to put the blame on. But when it's that time of the month, I know that it is from the endo mainly. And then I know that the FND is going to try to join in on the party. I just know that is how it goes. And so if anyone is new to FND, just starting to deal with it, there are certain things that I do during that time of the month so that I can continue to push through and so that I don't get to my absolute lowest. Because I think when it is that time of the month, I am more likely to be down. I am more likely to be in the bed. I am more likely to feel like I can't push through. I am more likely to be at my weakest. And so there are certain things that I do, which I'll talk about in just a moment. However, I will say that I am not a big pharmaceutical type of person, like I have mentioned before, but this week of the month, that time of the month, is the 1 week where I will cave and take pain medicine. But I do so in order to avoid those other symptoms coming up from FND and to continue to be functional. So if you do have a routine, if you do have certain morals and values and just things that you won't do in your life anymore, or changes that you have made, such as trying to be more natural and homeopathic, you do have to think about where you're going to be lenient. And so that time of the month is a time where I am more lenient, and I do allow a little bit more assistance from pharmaceuticals and from pain medicines and just various things that I might not allow myself to do or be a part of if it wasn't for that time of the month. And that's only so that I can continue to be functional, because I don't like to feel like I am hopeless. I don't like to feel like I am unable. I don't like to feel like that, because as it is, I spend even more time on my heating pad during that time of the month. It's pretty much attached to me. So I'm attached to it on my beanbag, and that's just the way that it goes. And my people in the household pretty much know that. And so they prepare for that, and they understand when it does happen. And another thing that has really come to my attention, and it actually does affect me, is the fact that the amount of perspiration that I do actually increases during that time of the month. My temperature regulation is already bad because of the FND, but I just think that with hormones and everything else involved during that week, oh man, the way that I perspire, I mean, it almost, the whole temperature regulation thing, it almost makes me want to do an entire episode on FND and temperature regulation, because that's a thing that it's not a huge thing, but it can be inconvenient, and it can be something that could possibly be embarrassing. And it's something that you probably would want to manage. It's something that I have to manage. Like, I have to do certain things. I have to change the bedding. I have to change the temperature in the house, and then that's not always fair for the other people. So I do have to think about that. So I am thinking about doing a entire episode on FND and temperature regulation, but especially during that time of the month, my perspiration increases. So I'm taking like 2, 3, 4 showers a day during that time, and that just is what it is. So that's one of those things, like, it's not super like a solution. I'm just saying, be willing to take more showers, and take more showers, because it helps, and it will help during that time of the month. I do have some solutions, or just some ways, some advice for things that I do to help me get through that time, because like I'm saying, you can't avoid it. You can't avoid it. I could probably get back on birth control. I don't know that it would have the same effect again, as far as like taking the cycle away. I could do it, but I don't want to just be taking pills if I don't need them, birth control being one of them. I don't want to just take pills just because. And so I was taking them for actual birth control, and I no longer need to take them for birth control. So why am I on birth control? So what I would suggest, number one, really is inform those around you. Inform those in your household and who are going to be near and dear to you during that time of the month. If you have coworkers, inform those people. Inform your family members around the house so they are ready. I really do it so they are ready to stay out of my crazy, cranky way, because it happens. It really, really does. And so if you inform people and communicate, then people know what to expect, and then they can also adjust themselves accordingly. If they want to avoid me, by all means, I might avoid me during that time a little bit. But if they know that I'm like struggling and know that I might need additional help during this week, then they're already informed, and they can be prepared to do so that it doesn't just like blindside them. Because there are certain days where I am just like a pain. I'm a pain in the butt. I am a real pain in the butt, and I'll be like, I just need chocolate cake. And then Mr. Mahogany's like, okay, I'll go get it for you. Like, so informing those around you, like what you need and where you are, and how like my fuse is like pretty small at that point, then they know. And they know, like, all right, Mommy Junior is like, let me tone it down. Let me stay in my room and read a book for that time, and then I'll be nice to her and not ask her for too many things. And I'm like, thank you, appreciate it. I'll check back in 7 business days. So I laugh about it, but it is, I'm telling the truth. And then I also do a specific yoga video. It's on YouTube, and it's from Boho Beautiful Yoga. I love them. That's the only yoga that I follow, the only yoga that I do. But she has a specific video for yoga for that time of the month. It's yoga for period pain and cramps, and just dealing with those type of emotions during that time of the month. And when I tell you, it helps so much. So on the days that I wake up and I am like, everybody get out of my way, I can't, I'm in so much pain and I don't want to feel this, and I just feel icky and uncomfortable in my skin, if I do that yoga video, then I can get through my day a bit better. So it helps so much. I can leave the link in the description box below for the YouTube, and then I'll find a way to get it to my audio listeners as well. So yoga for that time of the month. Do some yoga, try some yoga. It is worth it. I mentioned it in my FND for Yoga episode. So check out the FND for Yoga episode if you are interested in more things FND and yoga. Then also, I would say my holy grail of that time of the month is the Thinx period underwear. I mean, what? Those things are lifesavers. They are my favorite things. They are my absolute favorite. Like, I get excited like when I actually start, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I get to wear the underwear, because like they're so comfy. They're so comfy, and it takes away all the hassle of the period things. It takes away all the hassle of having to have everything on hand, and having to have a pad, and having to have a tampon, and having to have a Diva cup, and going and getting those supplies, and making sure you're stocked, and then stopping when you're out and disposing of that properly so it doesn't stink, and so it doesn't yawn. It takes away all of that. And so it feels better than wearing a pad. And I'm not even like sponsored or anything like that, but oh my gosh, if I was. But literally, I love them. And so I wear the boy short ones, and I just wear them. I wear them as shorts, and I feel so good. So then I'm not as hot and gross, because I can just wear those shorts. I don't have to wear a pad, and then underwear, and then something else on top of it to keep it so that I don't leak, and then maybe something on top of that that's my actual pants. Luckily, because I'm home most of the time, and I do spend probably even more time at home during that time of the month, because I don't want to be around the people. I don't want to be out and about feeling like I feel. So I can just wear those, and I love them. And so then, at least at a very minimum, I don't have to deal with leaks when I'm in the throes of my discomfort. If I do have some FND symptoms really arise, and I'm having tremors, and I'm just like rocking back and forth trying to deal with the pain of the cramps, and the pain of the back pain, and the hip pain, and the pelvic pain, and everything that I deal with, I don't have to worry about like, oh, let me make sure that I'm not leaking. Let me make sure that my pad's not full. Let me make sure that my tampon is not this and that. I don't have to worry about any of that. And then when it comes to tampons, I can't even use them due to the endo. It just won't work for me anymore. It just doesn't. It makes the cramps way worse. So then what is a new option is the Thinx underwear. I've tried the cups. Cups are messy, and they're plastic. I know that we have like the natural products, the natural brands that have come out with all these better things to be using as far as period supplies. However, as far as tampons, even if I could, I'd prefer not to have cotton inside me. I prefer not to wear a diaper when it comes to pads, and then I don't have to keep buying these things over and over. So the period underwear, you literally wash them, and this is just my most sustainable option. It's wonderful, and 10 out of 10 would recommend. 10 out of 10 recommend so much that I bought like 4 or 5 for myself, and then I bought like 2 or 3 more for me. I bought them for my stepdaughter because she just recently started. And then when it comes to Mommy Junior, I'm like, oh, I'm starting her on these. Like when she begins her cycle, I'm gonna be like, here is your blessing from the period gods. This will make it so that you never have to know and deal with what it's like to have to deal with all those like excusing yourself to go change your pad and all this other stuff. Like, it's great. I mean, I've never like worked a job and used them, so I don't know how sustainable that would be, or even gone to school and used them. But I know even at night, even just at night, it is a godsend. It is a godsend. I wake up in the morning without having to wake up in the middle of the night and being like, oh no, I hope I didn't leak. Like, they are good for like heavy, and I have like a pretty moderate to heavy flow. Great. They're wonderful for it. So again, 10 out of 10 do recommend. What I try to do is I make sure to try and minimize my output during those first few heavy days, because this is another reason for fatigue. And I know that if I'm already fatigued in general from FND, then if the fatigue is doubled with it being that time of the month, then I need to minimize my output so that I can maintain some type of energy, so that I can be able to ration out the energy that I do have. And so I minimize my output. I know like, okay, if it's coming, I need to go grocery shopping 2-3 days before I know that it's going to come, so that I don't have to worry about doing that. When it comes to maybe taking Mommy Junior to her extracurricular activities, maybe I just kind of tag your it to Mr. Mahogany for that week, and he understands, or my mom, and they definitely hop in when it comes time. And that is why it's so important to inform those around you, like, hey, this is about to be hell week for me, so I appreciate all the help I can get. And they definitely do. I also become extra diligent about my diet and my sleep during that week because it knocks me down and I become more vulnerable to viruses and bacteria. So when I came back from my best friend's wedding a few weeks ago, it was like I had done all that output for 8 straight days. Plus, it was about to be that time of the month. And so that's when I got COVID. So my body was like, yes, she's weak. Finally, she's weak. And this is my first time getting COVID because I was doing so much and because it was that time of the month. Like, that's the only time that I get sick. I get sick maybe once a year, like barely, which is great, which is like kind of ironic to me. I'm like, oh yeah, so I have all these chronic illnesses, but like I am a-okay. I have the strongest immune system in the house. Like Mommy Junior will get sick, Mr. Mahogany will have his like once or twice a year, and I'm just like, y'all are sick? That sucks. So the only time that I will be more susceptible to contracting those viral illnesses is when it's that time of the month. And so I know that, and I am even more careful and even more like I use my hand sanitizer. I make sure to wash my hands, and then I make sure to get the sleep that I need. I have to get my sleep. And then I also have to eat right. Even though you have those like time of the month hormonal food cravings, I definitely don't just give in to every single one and eat like trash during that time because I need to maintain energy and I need to maintain my immune system as well. So although most of those things I crave, I can't have anyway. So like if I'm like, oh man, I'm craving a Blizzard from Dairy Queen, I'm like, that was cute. Or if I'm like, I want a Frosty from Wendy's, like I can't even have dairy as it is on a regular day. So definitely not. But because the body is very, very demanding, can be very demanding, I have found substitutions for those things that I can't have when it comes to dairy or caffeine or just something that's super high fat and maybe just not so good for me. I have found more like plant-based or vegan options for those things that will fulfill some of those cravings that I have. So by all means, do that. Like, don't just cut yourself off and make yourself even more miserable because that time of the month is miserable enough. So treat yourself. Like, I love those little Lindt truffle balls and I eat those. I have them hidden in my little vegetable crisper because I don't want the rest of the family to eat them. And when it comes to that time, I just take my little Lindt balls and they're making me happy during my time of a struggle. So those are some of the things that I do. I will comment on the fact that I don't eat a whole lot, but my food take does increase during that time. So that's like one of the thumbs up of that time of the month is that my food intake does increase because I'm just, the body is like preparing for possible pregnancy. And so the cravings are up as well as your appetite. So I do kind of appreciate, and that's how I can always tell. I'll be like, dang, I'm eating a lot. Oh no, that means it's about to be that time. So it's like, good and bad. I try to find the silver lining in everything. So I guess that would be my one silver lining in that time of the month. But those are just some of the things that I do. It's not fun. It will never be fun. I think I would love for it to just be, I've heard some stories of people who just like, are like, oh, I didn't even realize I was on my period. And I'm like, that's great for you. I don't know. I've never felt that. I don't know what that might feel like. But I have found ways to continue to be who I am, to continue to push through, and to continue to be functional. Because life doesn't stop. It won't stop. I've always felt like it's crazy as hell, really, that women have to continue to act like everything's okay during that time of the month in general. And then I also developed the chronic illness. And I'm like, so wait. Not only do you want me to push through this time of the month, but I also have chronic illness on top of it. And I still have to just act like I'm okay. And then no one responds. And it's like, I'll take that as a yes. So here we go. Let me continue to maintain my household and cook for my family and do laundry and all these other things while dealing with this and that and this and that. And then people wonder why we get a little cranky. So I kind of give myself grace during that time of the month to just be a little cranky. And then I apologize later. So if you need to do that, that is perfectly okay. If you need to spill some tea, I am your person. I say that all the time. Send me a DM or I can connect you to the FND community, the FND Tea community on Facebook. I do have that, and I am going to get that up and running. It's been a little rocky here, recovering from COVID, and then just a little bit of other things in my life have been kind of crazy. But I'm back on track now, so I would love to add more people to the FND Tea community on Facebook. I would love for people to reach out and say maybe what they have found that helps them during this time of the month, and I would love for us all to connect. But that is all the tea that I have on FND and That time of the month / FND and Endo. And till next time, be intentional, be faithful, and be humble. Bye-bye.